What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Katie Mox, and today we're talking soccer, MLS, with our friend from wagertalk.com, Carmine Bianco. Carmine, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like I haven't chatted with you in a while. How's everything going?
Yeah, we haven't chatted since NHL season, but
Yeah.
everything's going well, and I'm really enjoying. I'm waiting for NHL to start, but I'm really enjoying MLS thus far.
I'm enjoying MLS too, and I'm not really a soccer person. So I also work at CBS. They launched the Golazzo Network, which is a 24-hour streaming soccer network, which is really cool. And CBS owns rights to a lot of the different European leagues. But just, obviously we have to get started with Lionel Messi, right? Joining Miami in the middle of the season. How has his presence really changed MLS? Because I got to be honest with you, nobody in America, and probably not in Canada either, cared about MLS. And now all of a sudden the tickets are just like ridiculously expensive. It is, Messi mania around here. And maybe MLS has a shot.
It does. It really does. The MLS here in North America, I think, is popular.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not one of the mainstream sports, but Messi coming here was such a big move. We've seen some big moves. David Beckham, one of the owners of Inter Miami, when he came to play for LA, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, when he came to play for LA, those were big moves, but nothing as epic as this one with Lionel Messi. So many players going to Saudi Arabia this year, and everyone figured he's likely going to make the move, but he chose to make the move here, and it's been such a big thing for the MLS. Immediately, every single team that had a home game against Inter Miami sold out that game. People were buying the tickets in order to possibly resell them, and we're seeing the prices of the tickets. They're ridiculous, but and you can make a case that Lionel Messi is not in his prime, but Lionel Messi not in his prime is better than 98% of the players who are playing in Europe right
Yeah.
now. I have to say it. He is just he's a generational talent, and arguably the best player in the world.
Well, and just the way that he's been playing too. I mean, he's saved the game multiple times, right? I mean, I think it was in his very first game. It was the penalty kick that got them to win that game. And then, in their Open Cup win, he had 2 assists there in the end. What did you think of Miami winning the US Open Cup?
So that was the semifinal against Cincinnati, and that was a big game. I think on the 27th of September is when the final is, and we're going to talk about some scheduling afterwards. But that was such a big game because, number one, it came against the league's best team,
Yeah.
Cincinnati, who are 10 points up on any other team, East or West, in the standings, and are probably going to win the Supporters Shield. But Cincinnati is also a team that was up 2-0 in that game, has not lost a game in 90 minutes at home all season long. In
Wow.
league play, they have not lost a game. They lost one game in the League's Cup, the tournament that just finished, and that was in penalty kicks. And then they lost to, obviously, in the U.S. Open semifinals, they lost to Inter Miami. That was also in penalty kicks. So a very good team. They beat a very good team and came back from 2-0 to do it. With a dramatic 97th minute goal, I think it was, to get there. So absolutely phenomenal. And it just shows you with this man on the field, you're never out of a game.
Do we think that Messi is enjoying playing in the MLS? I mean, obviously the level of talent is not what he's used to. And maybe we had talked a little bit in the pre-show how you said he's just kind of walking, he's not working as hard as maybe he's had to in years past. But does it seem like he's enjoying this? And does it seem like maybe we've got more stars on the way?
He's definitely enjoying it. I think the fact that, I believe he's already bought a home
Mm.
in Miami, and the fact that Sergio Busquets came with him, a lifelong friend, but someone who played with him at Barcelona, and then Jordi Alba on defense, who they also brought in, is there. It's not like he's there alone. He's there with
Yeah.
his family. I think Busquets bought a house right beside him,
Oh,
so they're
fun.
neighbors. And I think he's living it up. I think he's really enjoying being here, and it's a different media presence. It's one where the attention's all on him, but they're giving him his space. That didn't happen in Europe. whether he was playing at
Right.
Barcelona or whether he was playing in France for PSG. So they're loving him right now, and I think he's loving where he is right now.
It is really exciting. So, Carmine, if we look at this schedule, where's their first loss? Who's gonna hand Messi his first loss in the MLS?
So this is an interesting one because I took a deep dive into this. I just got back from Vegas last week, and when I went to Vegas, I shopped around at different places and looking for the best odds on Miami to win the MLS Cup.
Mm,
Now they're second from the bottom in the
yeah.
East, but I did a deep dive into their schedule, and you look at their schedule, and I'll explain one thing first before we get into this. Is that last season 7 teams made the playoffs in each conference. Last year, the team that finished in seventh had 48 points. This year, they've changed it to 9 teams make the playoffs, and that line for ninth place last year was 42 points. So 42 points, I believe, is pretty much the number. Somewhere between 40 to 43 will make the playoffs this season in MLS. Miami has 21 with 10 games left. They play
Ooh,
Nashville. They play
okay.
Nashville at home, and that's a game I think they'll win. They play Nashville. Their next game is against LAFC, and that's away. That's a tough game for them.
Okay.
LAFC is a team that I think is about to go on a very good run in the Western Conference, and are a very good team at home, defending champions, and they are pretty much stacked up front. They're 8-3-2 at home. So this is a tough one. If Miami was going to lose a game, it might be this game away at
Oh,
LAFC. If they can get a result in this game, whether it's a draw or a win, I think that their schedule sets up that they can go on and actually win 8 to 9 games on the schedule, because they play Sporting KC at home the following week. I think they'll win that one. Atlanta away, I believe they'll win that one. They then play Toronto at home. Now, Katie, you have a better chance of winning Powerball than Toronto has of getting anywhere close to Miami. This is a team I will discuss later on. They're just an instant fade kind of team.
and you're
And
from
we'll talk about
Toronto.
that
You
later
live
on.
in
And I'm from
Toronto.
Toronto. I'm a season ticket holder, and
Okay.
I've pretty much sold or given away every single game with the exception of two.
Ah,
They
well,
then play Orlando.
you're gonna see this game though when Messi rolls into town. You're not selling that ticket.
N Well, no, this one is in Miami, so I'm
Oh,
gonna have to
bummer.
wait
Okay.
until next year,
Yeah.
to see that one, and my in-laws are huge Messi fans, so I'm going to take them to the game instead of selling them
Oh,
for an exorbitant amount of money. Their next 2 games after that are Orlando and, New York FC, or away to Orlando, which is, in my obviously in Florida, and then home to New York FC. The problem with these 2 games is I don't think they're going to win them both. And the reason for this is that the final of the U.S. Open that you talked about falls right in between these 2 games, and they're all 3 days apart. So they play Orlando 3 days later. They're playing the final of the U.S. Open Cup, which they want to win. And then 3 days later, they're playing New York FC. That's 3 games in 7 days. And
yeah.
that is where Tati Martinez, the manager for Miami, is going to rest Messi at some point. So he could possibly rest him in Orlando ahead of that game against the U.S. Open Cup final. And with Messi out of the lineup, they're a different team, obviously. Then they finish it off with Cincinnati, Cincy, and Charlotte. And I honestly think that they can pick up at least 24 points from these 10 games, which will put them in the playoffs,
Okay.
which is why I shopped around and got the best price I could get on
Yeah.
Miami to win the MLS Cup, because to win it, you got to get in it,
Yeah.
and that's it. So
Yeah.
get in, and they have nobody wants to play Inter Miami right now with Lionel Messi and
Oh.
Busquets and Jordi Alba and Joseph Martinez. They're a very good team. But to your question of the first loss, it could very well come next week against LAFC in LA.
I mean, obviously, it makes sense that you would have to rest Messi at some point, but just imagine being one of the fans that spent a ridiculous amount of money, and that is the game that they decide to rest Messi.
Yeah, he was well this past weekend. I thought about that,
Yeah.
and I looked at the starting lineup because they were in New York to face the Red Bulls,
Right.
and I thought he could rest them here because the Red Bulls are a team that don't score a lot of goals, but are very good defensively, and maybe he just saves him for the second half or brings him in with about 30 minutes left. And that's exactly what they
Yeah.
did. They had the lead at the end of the first half, and I thought he might not play at all. I feel bad for the fans in New York that
Yeah.
spent an
A
insane
huge
amount of money to
yeah.
watch those games.
Yeah,
And but
especially
he got in and he scored.
yeah, and that's the
So,
thing. It was, like, well worth it. I was reading an article on it that he came in the last 30 minutes, and that's all anybody wants to see, but I'm sure the fans were sweating it out the whole time, wondering if he was going to get in. So, obviously, we know that Inter Miami is a very good team. Like you said, nobody wants to see them right now. Are there any other teams that you like? Obviously, you talked about, LAFC. They defeated Philadelphia Union last year. They're the reigning champions. Also, Cincinnati FC, has the best record in MLS right now. Are there any other teams that you think could that you like?
yeah, the one thing about the way the MLS is set up for those watching this show is the final is never set. As far as the location of the final is never set. It's not like the Super Bowl where it's going to be where it's going to be played every year. The final is set for the of the two teams that are participating in the final. The team with the best home record the best record during the regular season gets to host the MLS Cup.
Oh,
So obviously, having to wait, you've got to look at the standings, and you've got to look at. And normally, you're looking at the top two or three teams to make a run. And Cincinnati is a very good team. If Cincinnati can get through the East, and their odds, I think, are plus 475, I believe, for Cincinnati. If they can get to the finals, they will likely host the finals in Cincinnati. So that'll be a tough location for any team to play because they normally are a very good team at home.
yeah.
If LAFC is a team, and I mentioned LAFC is a team that I think are going to go on a run. Of the remaining games, they're, I think, 3 points out of first place, 3 or 4 points out of first place. But of the remaining games, they only have one East Coast trip, and that is to Philadelphia on the 23rd of September. Every other game is against a Western Conference foe. And when you're playing, obviously, with limited travel, it's a much better schedule for the players. And I think they're just going to go on a very good run and win top spot in the West. And if anyone is able to upset Cincinnati in the
Mm,
East, LA probably ends up hosting the MLS Cup again and could repeat. And they've got very good odds right now. I think they're at
yeah.
plus 800. So that's a very good price.
Yeah.
If you, again, dive into their schedule, and this is what you should always do with any future bets, Katie, is always dive into a team's schedule to see if it's a favorable one. And if you believe that this is a team that could go on a run, it's sometimes good to get on the train before it leaves, right? So,
Yes.
and that price drops.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. You're watching Moxie Bets. We have more MLS talk with our friend Carmine Bianco up next. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the type of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Welcome back to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Here with Carmine Bianco, talking MLS soccer. You bet everything, Carmine, which I really appreciate about you. What is the difference in betting soccer to other sports?
I think, one of the toughest things I think for North American bettors is when they look at soccer, and it's probably one of the reasons why they don't always want to bet on it, is because of the three-way line. The three-way
Yes.
line obviously makes it a lot tougher. You get you get the argument of, my team didn't lose, so
Yeah.
why did my bet lose? Well, it's because the draws incorporated in it, and that is to bring obviously the odds down and make it a more favorable bet. Now you can always take the two-way line, which is a point spread line, and that is what people are more accustomed to. So much like NFL football, you lay the if in football, if you're laying 6.5, if you're betting a very good team in soccer, you may lay a goal or a goal and a half, and you know what they need to win by. So there are no pushes a majority of the time in that sport, but it's a very good sport. I think it's a very good sport to bet because if you can focus on one or two leagues in general
Hmm.
and get a better feel for it and do research on it, there's obviously money to be made. The most popular one is obviously the EPL, the Premier League
Yes.
in England. it is the most bet on sport
In the world?
and league in the world. It
Wow.
is. So it is, and this includes. This is the argument I have with friends all the time. They talk about the Super Bowl, and I love the Super Bowl. I have a 2 or 3 sheets, much like yourself, of
Yep.
prop bets that we have. We're just having fun.
Yeah.
But there are games in Europe that get more betting on them than a Cup Finals, let's call them, than the Super Bowl, which is
Wow.
hard to believe. But it's just it has such a huge following all over the world, not just
Yeah.
North America.
Well, and it's what's so interesting too is even when you look at like in America, football is king. American football is king. But when you look at even just something like social media, the Tom Brady has 38 million or something followers. You look at Lionel Messi, or you look and they have 300 million. So when you think of it that way, I mean, it is so much more of a global sport. There's so many more eyes on them. They have so many more fans than us in America that think, oh, football's so great, but when it comes to the world, nobody really cares about football. You brought up the Premier League being, the most popular thing to bet on. Are there differences in how you would bet, like EPL versus MLS?
Um, there are obviously with the Premier League there's just a wealth of information out there. You
Right.
can get a lot of info on teams, and with any sports, if you want to have long-term success betting, number one, you have to practice bankroll management, of course. But
Yes.
the second one is to learn from your mistakes and continue to learn and get as much info as possible. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make. They'll bet based on standings, and they'll look and see, well, Man City is playing, 12th place Sheffield,
Yeah.
and this should be an easy one. And then the game finishes 1-0, and you laid 2.5 goals and wonder why you lost.
Yeah.
And it's just do a deep dive, get as much information as you can as possible. But the Premier League has so much information available on so many platforms, and of course on Twitter or the X or whatever it's called right now. You can find a lot about teams, follow them, because the thing about the Premier League and the MLS is this in betting is you take a Premier League team and an Arsenal, a Man United, a Man City. If they're missing 1 or 2 very good players, there's so much player depth that you can get by it. They can still win games. The difference in the MLS, unfortunately, is there isn't that player depth. So if you're missing 1 or 2 quality players or stars on a team, that team suffers. And you have to look at that. You have to look at reports on players missing in the MLS because it makes a big difference. Case in point, and the easiest one is we're talking about Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
This is a Miami team that was marred in last place and couldn't win a game, and now they can't lose a game by adding one of the greatest players all time and adding Sergio Busquets and Danny Alba. So this is what the difference of 1 or 2 players being in the lineup or out of the lineup does. And this is why I say before you make a bet, get as much information on the teams that are playing and the players that are available before you make that bet.
Yeah, people who just bet blind, it's just like you're just literally throwing money away. Like, do your research, figure out where you can find some kind of an edge and bet that way. Because even when you do have an edge, Carmine, as you know, you could lose the bet very easily. So at least you go into there with some knowledge. There does seem to be a full slate of games, MLS games this Wednesday. Anything that you are kind of looking forward to?
So there's all season long. And I told you I'm a Toronto FC
Yes,
supporter. Well, I'm not really
and
supporting
Fader.
them this year because I haven't gone to the thing. And Fader, but I have said I've done different soccer shows throughout the season, and I talk about it on Twitter or X, and I've said just continue to fade Toronto. They're a
Mhm.
team that are fractured. I see what happens in the practices. I hear what happens in the reports in the dressing room, and they're just a team that is miserable right now. They're waiting for the season to end and playing it out. So, case in point, and I'll make it really quick to not take up too much time. But case in point is I talked this past week about line movements, and Toronto was playing in Columbus this past weekend, and I said to jump on the line as early as possible because the line would eventually. People like to bet closer to the weekend, not early on, but grabbing the best numbers always the most important thing. I said Toronto would lose that game and probably convincingly. And 2-0 is convincingly. They lost that game. We're never in it. Columbus won that game. And now they have Philadelphia coming to town on Wednesday. And I've yet to see the line on this game, but there's only one way to play this game, and that is
Yeah.
to take Philadelphia. They are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference once again, and probably the one team that can be the fly in the ointment of Cincinnati. And they're a play on. They won this past weekend against DC United, which is a tough place to play and win. And they won that game convincingly. And now they're coming to Toronto, and it just sets up for another victory for them. So that's the one game that stands out to me.
Fade. If you're going to bet anything blind, I guess it's fade Toronto. That is
Yes.
something
Yes.
we should
Yes.
definitely be doing. One more thing, like obviously we've talked about Messi joining and what an impact that had on MLS, but also this Apple TV deal has made the sport a lot more accessible to people. Do you think that it's also helped change MLS and the, perspective in North America?
I think so. What they did, and I love Apple TV, by the way. What they did, at least here in Toronto, I think they did it with other teams as well too. Is the season ticket holders were given the first year subscription for free.
Wow.
That did
Cool.
happen up here. So I'm not positive if all the other teams followed, but I would believe they
Yeah.
did. Now Apple TV is much like the NFL Sunday Ticket.
Mm.
It is set up where every game is on the platform, and you can set up a multi-screen where you can watch 5 or 6 games at one
Cool.
time, much like the NFL. So you're not missing any action. And I think as the sport grows through Apple TV, you're going to get more and more fans who are watching, more and more fans who are enjoying. Um, Apple TV, obviously, if for those who don't know, when Lionel Messi decided to come, a lot of people wonder, why wouldn't you take the 200 million or 300 million or 400 million they're offering
The
you in Saudi
Saudis.
Arabia?
Yeah.
He came here, and his deal was a very good one. I think he's getting 50 to 60 million. He gets a share of every Apple TV subscription
Wow.
um, from the day that he announced he was coming. He gets a share of every single subscription, and his fan base, as you said,
Yeah.
300 million followers or what
Yeah.
have you. They
Yeah.
all want to see him. So
Yeah.
now they're getting Apple TV subscriptions. He made a deal with Adidas on jersey sales. So he made his money coming to the MLS, and Apple TV made money, and they're going to continue because of that money and their growth. They're going to continue to grow the brand. So I think it's a great move having every single game on Apple TV.
Well, and I was looking at tweets earlier today, and someone said that they really liked how the MLS, posts videos 10 minutes after the goal, and they show you that's not geotagged. Like with other leagues, you can't necessarily see what's happening on social media, or excuse me, what's happening at the games on social media. So that was something that I found that a lot of fans were happy about with the MLS, because you could see, Messi score the goal 10 minutes after it happened on social media without having it, the geolocation situation,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the most frustrating thing. There'll be like a Premier League game, someone posts something, and I go to click on it, and it says not available in your location, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I want to see this goal." So
yeah.
it's great in that sense. So it making it available for everyone to see, because 5 minutes after Messi scores, it's trending on Twitter, of course, or the X, and you click on it and you see the videos, and you're just this is unbelievable. And again, he's growing. He's helping grow the MLS.
Yeah, which is really exciting. One more thing. So you are an all sport handicapper, which I don't even know how you do, at wagertalk.com. But you are also the winner of the Circus Sports Millions first quarter last year. And I'm looking at a picture right now. You won $105,000. First of all, congratulations. Second of all, how'd you do it?
Yeah, it was an insane first 4 weeks of that contest. You go into it thinking about the first
Yeah.
place prize, which is $1 million, and I never thought of even thinking about the quarter. And then the first 3 quarters, I win 5-0 each week against the
Wow.
spread. And I went into the fourth week, and now, of course, the nerve setting, because there's only one other person at 5-0, and I had a spreadsheet of what everyone who could possibly catch me
Ah,
had as far as games were going. And I was out with friends, and ended up going 3-1-1 that day, 18-1-1. The one game that pushed was probably the one that triggered me a little bit. It was the Buffalo Bills against the Baltimore Ravens. The Bills are minus
Oh.
3,
Uh-huh.
and they have the ball, and they're late in the game, and they hand it off, and he's running to the end zone from the 12-yard line, and then takes a knee at the 2-yard line so they could run out the clock and kick a field goal. And him not going in cost me $45,000 because I ended up splitting first and second. Someone tied me and I finished tied for first. So won $105,000, which was great.
Amazing.
Your fantastic internal revenue service took 30% of it, which
Well,
I'm waiting
yes.
to get back.
Yes.
They are going to give it back, which is great, but
Oh,
they
because you're
took
Canadian, so you
31,000.
don't is that
Yes,
just oh, so
yeah,
they
we
don't
have a
tax you.
tax. Yeah, because lottery winnings aren't taxed in Canada, but we also have a treaty with the US.
Okay.
And so all gambling winnings aren't taxable either, but you still have to file a tax return, much like you do. Yours is a
Yeah.
1040, mine's a 1040 NR as a
Okay.
non resident, and we
Uh-huh.
get it back. So I'm waiting for them to send it back. It'll be a nice little gift during football season.
Yes. Well, one, I didn't even think about that. First of all, you make me wanna be Canadian, that you don't pay taxes on lottery winning or on gambling winning. Like, that is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts here, but we our tax structure here also makes it so tough. You know, they say
Okay.
not to get into politics, but they say, "Oh, Canada's great; it's got free healthcare." It's not free healthcare. When
Yes.
we have a day, I think it's July the 3rd or 1st or 2nd or 3rd, somewhere there, where they
Canada
call it
Day?
tax-free day. They
Okay.
call it tax-free day, which essentially means everything you've earned up until July 1st has gone to the government. Everything you earn from this point forward you get to keep. That's how our tax is the
Interesting.
more you make, the more they tax you. So it's
Yeah.
why sports. Getting back to sports, it's why a lot of players do not want to play in Canada because of our tax structure.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
they're the ones making millions are taxed at somewhere close to like 54% in Canada when they're playing in Canada. With the US players, you get taxed in Canada on when you're playing in Canada. And when you're playing, let's say, if LeBron was here
Yeah.
playing for the Raptors, he gets taxed 54% of his
That
income
game.
earned in Canada.
Yeah.
When he travels to New York, he's taxed by the state in New York, and so on and so forth. So
I honestly I was reading about that like a month ago and I don't understand it. I don't know why they have to pay tax in every stadium that they play in if they're only there for like 3 hours to play a
yeah.
game. Why aren't you just taxed by who pays you? But that's neither here nor there. That is absolutely wild. And yeah, I guess more reason to gamble in Canada because they're not if they're taxing you, up the wazoo in one way, you might as well gamble and keep all of your winnings that way. Carmine, thank you so much for joining us today. Talk to me about what you're up to. Obviously, I know you're on Wager Talk every day. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, hockey's right around the corner. We have a soccer show that I host each Tuesday and Thursday called Stoppage Time, where we cover the Premier League. And once Champions League and Europa League starts, we'll cover that as well too. That's on every Tuesday and Thursday on our channel, Wager Talk TV, which is live. And Wednesdays, I'm the host of a CFL show.
Ah,
And while I don't give out CFL picks. I
okay.
just I stay in my lane.
Yeah.
Know where you belong. But the two guys we have on the show, Andrew McInnes and Rob Braley, who's a good friend of mine, and his family have owned many of the CFL teams, so he gets a lot of information and gives it out to the public. The two great ones to have on, and then of course NHL is right around the corner. Myself and Andrew McInnes, we do a Monday to Friday show called Puck Time, which airs at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Wager Talk TV.
I love that. I was talking to a friend of mine, this guy, Emery Hunt, who is like a football encyclopedia, and he knows every single player in every single league. And he makes a lot of bets in the CFL as well. And he was saying he was surprised that the CFL isn't more popular here in the US. And I mean, clearly it's football, right? So there's a lot of similarities, and there are some CFL players that have come over to the NFL. Are you surprised that the CFL isn't more popular here in the US?
I'm not, and here's the reason why: is we love the NFL for for many reasons, but
Yeah.
one reason only is you know all your games are on Sunday, and you set up for a Sunday
Oh,
of NFL football on your couch or at a
yeah.
bar or what have
Yeah.
you. There are office football pools. There's fantasy leagues.
Yeah.
There's so much. The NFL has built such a monster brand. It's massive. The CFL, their games are like one game on Thursday, one game on Friday,
Yeah.
one game on Saturday, one game on Sunday. It's tough to gain any momentum
Right.
when the 4 games are spread out. There's only 9 teams in the league, so there's always a bye week, and there's it's one game a night. It's very tough. So that's what makes it a little tougher. But because it's played in the summer as opposed to in direct competition with the NFL,
Right.
it does give everyone some football to bet on when
Yeah.
they're craving it.
That makes sense. And yeah, the fact that it happens in the summer, pretty hot, but probably good. And the Grey Cup is the Super Bowl, right? The equivalent.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, the Grey
correct.
Cup. All right, Carmine, thank you so much for joining us today and talking MLS. Really appreciate it. You can follow him at Carmine Bianco WT. That WT is for Wager Talk on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. These days, this has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Don't forget to follow us on social at Moxie Bets, and make sure that you follow Carmine here and watch him on Wager Talk. Have a good one.